So in my last InDesign demo, I showed you guys how to create a file that is set up like this for a 4-page newsletter. This would be 4 8.5 by 11-inch facing pages in order to have something that could be printed on both sides of an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, folded, and then you have your 4 pages. However, I also Oh, that's fine and dandy, but that is not what I'm here to talk to you guys about. What I'm here to talk to you guys about and to show you how to do is to create a version that is 2 11 by 17 pages printed front and back so that when the paper is folded, you have a page 1, a page 2, and 3 in the middle, and a page 4. So this sheet of paper, yes, it's just printed front back. And it looks exactly like it looks on screen. So if you look at the top page right now, it looks exactly like that. And the pages need to be in the right order, right? So you're that's page 1, right? You are in charge of putting page 1 in the correct location. You would be in charge of putting page 4 in the correct location, which ends up on the back of the paper, right? So look at the file, see that very top page there, that's page 4 and page 1. And on the inside, it's just regular page 2 and 3 next to each other. When you print this file exactly how it is on to 11 by 17 paper and then fold it in half, the pages are already in the correct order. The other way of setting up your file, you would have to print to booklet. Now, here's the other thing. Notice this master page. I could not create this document and have my grid created for me. So you would need to create for yourself a master page that has a custom grid on it, and you would be in charge of making the grid. So I'm going to show you how to do this, right? We're going to set up a new file to be 17 by 11, and that is landscape, and we're definitely going to turn off facing pages. You only want to have facing pages in a file that has more than 2 pages. So we're going to take the page number down to 2. We do not have 4 pages in this file. We're just printing 2 pages on the front of this sheet of paper and 2 pages on the back of this sheet of paper. So our file is literally going to match what the front and the back of this sheet of paper looks like, instead of being broken down into 4 smaller 8.5 by 11-inch pages. So we're not going to be able to use a grid here. The reason why is because this piece of paper is going to fold in the middle, and if we ask InDesign to make a grid for us with all these columns, it's going to span across the entire page and not take into consideration the fact that it's going to fold in the center, and that on either side of this center there needs to be a margin. So we're not going to be able to get InDesign to create this grid for us, but we will be able to include margin guide amounts. We will be able to include how much of a bleed we want for our bleed guideline. I'm going to try and just enter in some margin guides I think are reasonable. Now, because there's no inside outside, right? Instead, there is left and right side margin guides, and there's top and bottom margin guides. Remember, if we set it up as facing pages and 4 pages, then we would have inside outside, but this doesn't have inside outside. I'm seeing there's a little bit of a bug here where it is showing a grid that really shouldn't be there and shouldn't exist when I created my file. So I'm going to take my master page icon here in my pages panel and drag it over top of pages 1 and 2 to get rid of that really weird grid that it created, even though I told it not to create a grid and to only give me one column like you're seeing here. So drag and drop from my master page onto page 1 and drag and drop onto page 2. This way here I know that whatever is on my master page is being applied to pages 1 and 2. Now I'm going to double click and I'm actually going to go to my master page. I'm not going to put a grid on page 1 and then go to page 2 and put a grid on page 2. Instead, I'm going to go to my master page and make sure I'm putting the grid there because I know it's going to automatically appear then on pages 1 and 2. This is a time saver to use my master page like this. So the very first guideline I'm going to create is one that shows me when I look at my layout where I'm going to fold the paper when I'm done. So here I go, double click, made sure that I am actually on my master page as I do this. And to create guidelines, custom guidelines, I'm just going to drag and drop them from the ruler bars. Now this, I do know I'm on my master page. Yes, definitely make sure you're on your master page. Make sure you're double clicking to get to your master page because it looks like all your other pages right now. And just double check in the bottom left hand corner of your open window to make sure it says you're on your master page. So there you have it. I just dragged and dropped a single guideline right smack in the middle of this 11 by 17 page. That's going to show me where to fold. And then I'm going to add 2 more guidelines on either side of the fold so that my margin, right, is considered for both sides of the fold. So, right, remember on page 1, the right side of this sheet of paper is going to end up being for the front cover of my my newsletter once it's folded, and then on the left side of that, it's going to be the back. So once that folds down the middle, I have to make sure that there are margin guides that go all the way around each page after it's folded. So the guide in the middle I created is where it's going to fold, and these 2 guidelines on either side of that are the ones that are giving me my margin for my pages after it's folded. The other margin guides I created when I created this document. So now I'm just going to randomly drag and drop some additional horizontal guidelines and pretend like I'm making some columns for a custom grid, including a space in between for the gutter. But you see, it's extremely difficult for me to make sure that my columns and gutter widths in between the columns are evenly spaced. And to be honest, if you tried to do this math where you measure the space in between the margin guides in inches and try and do the math, you'll drive yourself crazy. So I'm going to show you how to cheat. I am creating one long text frame that goes from margin guide to margin guide on one side of the paper. And there's a really cool trick. I'm just going to go ahead and pretend like I'm typing super fast placeholder text into this text frame so you can see that it goes across all the way across one long column. Don't ever do this, by the way. You always want columns for body copy. But we're making it one long column because I am going to trick InDesign into turning this column into a multi-column text frame. So making sure that I'm on my paragraph controls. There are character and paragraph controls along the top of my control panel for text. All the way on the right of my paragraph controls, where you see me clicking now, is where I can actually say I want this one single text frame to be split into multiple columns. Cool thing about this, InDesign does all the work and all the math for me and makes them evenly spaced. So now I can just grab my guidelines that are like close but no cigar, and I can readjust them so that they're aligning to the columns that InDesign made for me for this single text frame. So some people like to use single text frames that are split up into multiple columns. They don't have to worry about threading and stuff like that for this one column. I don't care for it much. It's a little rigid, but I do like using this feature um, to cheat and create evenly spaced column guides when I have to create a custom grid on my master page. So I am I moved this text frame over to the other side of the sheet of paper, still aligning it from margin to margin, and I have created a fresh set of guidelines that I'm pulling from my ruler bar onto the space here so that now I have the right side of the paper. I have that grid. Now, I don't want to leave this text frame there. You can see in my Pages panel, it is showing up on page 1 and page 2, right? Remember the rule for the master page is everything that you put on the master page appears on all other pages. So I have to delete that from my master page, otherwise that text column I was using to cheat is going to end up on page 1 and page 2. I just want my grid to be on page 1 and page 2. So just double click to go to page 1. And now I can begin working in this file. I'm going to zoom out for you so you can see I have 2 pages. Those 2 pages match exactly what I put on my master page. And anything else that I want to put on my master page will automatically appear on those 2 pages. Don't forget that when you set your file up this way, page 1 is going to be on the right side of the top page. Page 4 will be on, so there's the right side, page 4 will be there. And then on the inside, it's just pages 1 and 2 in the correct order, right? You're just going to print this front and back onto a single sheet of 11 by 17 paper, and that's it.